2,700 people have been wounded, almost 200 of whom are in serious condition. Hamas terrorists saying on Monday that every strike on the Strip without prior warning will be met with an Israeli hostage executed on film. Here's more from the Israeli premier.
Hamas will understand that by attacking us, they've made a mistake of historic proportions. We will exact a price that will be remembered by them and Israel's other enemies for decades to come. The savage attacks that Hamas perpetrated against innocent Israelis are mind-boggling, slaughtering families in their homes, massacring hundreds of young people at an outdoor festival, kidnapping scores of women, children, and elderly, even Holocaust survivors. Hamas terrorists bound, burned, and executed children. They are savages. Hamas is ISIS. And just as the forces of civilizations united to defeat ISIS, the forces of civilization must support Israel in defeating Hamas.
Let's cross now live to our correspondent, Nicole Zedek, who is standing by for us near the Israel-Gaza border. Nicole, still early hours in the morning, but there's already an announcement from the IDF telling Gazans to flee to Egypt while they still can. What is the latest update with the Rafah border crossing between Gaza and Egypt? What can you tell us?
Good morning, Batia. I can tell you that as far as everything that's happening in the Gaza Strip, we continue to hear it from about 2.5 miles away from where we are right now near the Gaza border. Loud explosions, as Israeli Air Force says. Overnight, warplanes targeted about 200 different targets in the Gaza Strip as they are continuing to pound some of these targets in the Gaza Strip. And it's continuing into these early morning hours right now. And so many of those Gaza residents are starting to flee because it is quite a dangerous situation down there as well. Now, here in the Israeli side of just near the Gaza border, it's also a very dangerous situation for any of the residents who are left in the area. This is one of the scenes behind me here near the kibbutz Saad, where a terrorist overnight was killed by Israeli soldiers. His body is still laying in the road behind us here, and Israeli forces say that there is a strong possibility there are still other terrorists hiding out in the area. Also the possibility that more could still be infiltrating through some of these barriers, through some of these different ways that they were able to get through the security fence in the first place. Now, buddy, I want to show you just a reminder. We're entering the 4th day of this war, a reminder of exactly when it broke out for these people in these kibbutz communities here in the south. It was on the Jewish holiday of Simchat Torah, the last day of Sukkot. And you can see at this public bus station, these are the 4 species, one part of the holiday rituals that the Jewish people use to help celebrate this. So as these different kibbutz members, these different Jewish people here in Israel were celebrating what was supposed to be a joyous holiday, they were gunned down by these Hamas terrorists. One of the kibbutz communities not far from here, kibbutz Be'eri, more than 100 people, more than 100 bodies were found. That's 10% of the kibbutz population. So that just puts into perspective exactly what's happening. We still see the remnants of the life that was happening here in the south before it was suddenly flipped upside down. It's still very, very graphic images that we continue to see down here in the south. Continue to be next to a public bomb shelter right next to this public bus stop as well, because we do hear more sirens and more rocket attacks from the Gaza Strip as well. The last one happening about 4 hours ago, Israel time. So still a very, very active, dangerous scene here.
Absolutely, Nicole. Definitely the raw images there showing people that were what was supposed to be a celebratory day, obviously running for shelter and to try and get to safety. Thank you very much for that update. We'll be crossing live to you a little bit later. But with me here in studio for more analysis is Danny Ayalon, the former Israeli ambassador to the United States, as well as a former Israeli deputy foreign minister. Danny, good morning to you.
Good morning, Batia.
There's a fortune to unpack already on day 4, but I want to start with a follow-up with the conversation with Nicole. The IDF saying, and we heard it from Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in his first public address a few days ago when he said to the Gazan residents, get out now. Let's unpack this by asking the hard-hitting question. Where is it for them to go? There is a fortune of xenophobia already on the other side in Jordan with regards to the Palestinians. They don't appear to want them there. And the same thing with regards to the Rafah crossing that was open yesterday and is apparently closed again this morning. So where, yes, innocent civilians, no doubt. Where is for them to go if the borders of the Muslim Brotherhood, so-called, are closed?
That's a good question. First of all, the crux is on the Gaza border. We're not talking about Jordan now. We're not talking about the West Bank. Things there are being, let's say, contained, which is good. But where do they have to go? First and foremost, they get a fair warning because we are in a war. So these are totally different protocols of operation, totally different laws, rules of law. Here the law is a wartime law. And they should clear out because the Hamas has to be dismantled totally. And Gaza, the goal is that Gaza will be demilitarized. And then things can get back into order to be rebuilt from square one. Where do they go now? They can go to the beaches and they can go north towards the Sinai border. There is this huge, spacious area over there which they can go. And the idea is to clear out. By the way, they should not be condoned. They are the ones, actually, they are victims also of Hamas. Hamas, hold also his own population as hostages. But at this time, we cannot be thinking of humanitarian issues because when the sword is on your neck, first and foremost, you have to save yourselves. This is what the Americans did after Pearl Harbor. Took them a while. But Pearl Harbor, that started in such a shock, which would be akin to what happened here. Pearl Harbor was December 7th. We had our October 7th. But how did Pearl Harbor end after 4 years? With 2 nuclear bombs on the Japanese. Now, I'm not suggesting doing anything similar to that, but this is the dynamic and this is the direction. The British in World War II sustained so many casualties, and then they flattened total and whole cities in Germany, Dresden as an example. This is what normal countries do when their survival is at stake. Now, I'll tell you what we are facing here, and I think Netanyahu was right to say, Hamas is Daesh or ISIS. They are like twin brothers, and I think this is what the world understands now. And this is a period of grace from Israel internationally when we get the support of everyone in the Western world, in the enlightened world, in the Judeo-Christian world. I'm not expecting any sympathy or support from any Arab countries. They have their own issues, but they are the first ones to watch to make sure Hamas is eradicated, because Hamas, which is part of the Muslim Brotherhood, is the mortal enemy of the Egyptian government, Jordanian king, Saudi Arabia, the Emirates, all the Abraham courts, Morocco, all these are waiting in the wings to see. Now, in 1982, now those who know Hamas and the radical Islam more than anyone else is the Arabs themselves. Back in 1982, Hafez Assad, which is the father of Assad now, killed and buried alive 30,000 Hamas or Islamist, Islamist movement people in Hama in Syria. That's the way they deal with themselves. I'm not suggesting we will do the same, but I think we should take radical measures, and Gaza should never, ever be the same.
I want to continue this conversation, but you touched on the northern border, and I do want to cross now to our correspondent, Hamda Salchut, who is standing by for us in Nahariya in northern Israel. Hamda, Israel is concerned, and so are the citizens itself, that this could be a multifaceted war on both borders, being the south and the north. What can you tell us? What is the latest on the northern border at this point in time?
That's right. Israel preparing itself for what could be a multi-front conflict after an infiltration yesterday at the northern border. 2 members of Palestinian Islamic Jihad from the Al-Burj camp and Ain al-Hilwa infiltrating the border and getting into a firefight with the Israeli military. At this time, 1 Israeli soldier has been confirmed killed, multiple other injuries, other reports circulating, but we're waiting for the military for confirmation on that. Factions inside of southern Lebanon who operate there, Palestinian factions to be exact, fact, are saying that they're prepared to enter the fight, but Hezbollah needs to take the lead. Remember, earlier this year when Palestinian factions launched rockets into southern Lebanon, they needed Hezbollah's approval to do so from Lebanese territory. So it's still a waiting game to see if these Palestinian factions and Hezbollah will get involved on a larger scale. But overnight, continued shelling and exchanges of fire between the Israelis and Hezbollah after at least 6 members of the armed group in Lebanese territory were killed after Israel strikes.
Khamda, are we hearing any reports of rocket sirens on the northern border? They have been frequent on the southern border while Israel conducts both its retaliatory airstrikes in the Gaza Strip, but also while it does that, there have been alerts in southern communities around the Gaza envelope. Are we seeing the same sort of alerts in the north?
Look, yesterday there were rocket sirens alerts here in the northern border, and that's because Hamas is telling the Israelis that they have long-range missiles that can reach all over the country. Now, members of Hezbollah are saying that they stand with the Palestinians and that their rockets and their arms are prepared. So should they choose to launch those rockets from southern Lebanon, the sirens will sure to be ringing inside of the area here in the north. But as of now, this morning, quiet when it comes to the sirens. However, still looming the potential for a new conflict arising on the northern front.
Correspondent Khamda Salkhut there in northern Israel. Thank you for that update. We'll be crossing back live to you a little later. Still with me here in studio is Danny Ayalon. Danny, let's continue the conversation. We were talking about where innocent Gazan residents at this point in time, we know the IDF strikes Hamas militants, their facilities, but as you pointed out very clearly, they are used as human shields a fortune of the time. So I think the bigger question is, apart from where they can go, will they be allowed to go? If Hamas is planting their facilities under schools, under hospitals, under mosques, and they need the civilians in the area for those casualties to go up, surely they would want the citizens to be there.
Absolutely. And, you know, they have been performing a double war crime or even crime against humanity. First of all, who did they target? They target civilians. They target our own civilians. You know, when they boast this victory in the first 24 hours, who did they fight? They fought babies. They fought unarmed families. They fought old ladies. This is what they slaughtered, and this is what their big win is. Now the tide is changing. Now, the second war crime, of course, that they were using their own people as human shields, but they will not be able to keep them for long, because if there is an influx of hundreds of thousands of Gazans, they cannot hold them, you know, intact. And I think that should be the message. Now, where will they go? We mentioned there is a spacious area back in the Sinai. I'm sure Israel will be very happy to build them tents, you know, tents, and with all the facilities they need to, you know, send in parachuting, food, water, or whatever. And this will be temporary until Gaza is cleaned up.
I want to point out to the viewers that we are looking at live images on your screen at the moment of the Gaza Strip skyline. And Danny, the heads of the coalition parties are said to meet on the formation of a unity government. There's been major progress with Benny Gantz, the head of the National Unity Party, and the Israeli premier. On the backdrop of all of this, there was questions being asked yesterday as to what the world should expect the Israeli response to be. Regardless of the unity government or the current government, should Israel be sitting idly by now that they've gotten the green light from many Western nations? The media, for the time being, on our side. Western nations, for the time being, on our side. Is that likely to flip on its head, given the response coming from Israel? And what should that response be?
I don't think so. And there is a water change now, or a sea change, not only in the area, but also in the minds and, I would say, thinking in the Western world. And we're all, Batya, in the same boat. They understand. The entire world is watching. It's not just now between Israel and Hamas, ISIS. It is between Western civilization and radical Islamist movements. And these radical Islamist movements, they are not just targeting us. I mean, for them, the Jews is only the first course. And if you look at the map, Israel is here actually stopping. It's a stopgap against all those radical Islam to go into where? Into Europe. And then next on to America. So we are all together. They understand that this is the time to be decisive. No more just an interim agreements whereby you seek a ceasefire until the next round. This will not happen, and we have the support for it. I have to say that President Biden, the administration, the United States has proven again to be our best friend and ally. And we appreciate very much what they do with munitions, with all the aid we need, with sending strong messages to Iran, to Hezbollah, with sending, it used to be gunboat diplomacy of the 19th century, with sending a task force from the 6th Fleet with a major Gerald Ford type aircraft carrier and all the ships around it, coming to the shores of Lebanon, and this is just a message, and we're all in it, and we are very determined to finish the job.
Danny, to be continued. What I want to cross now to, we were talking about where the residents of Gaza should go as these Israeli strikes, retaliatory strikes, continue to pound the strip. But where do Israeli residents of the communities near Gaza's border go? So many of them are now being evacuated to hotels across Israel. This after the nightmares they faced comes a fortune of relief, also exhaustion, and possibly the start of a long but uncertain road ahead. In Israel, the country is unifying in many ways to help in any way that they possibly can, including hotels, which are hosting thousands of evacuees. Chana Rivkin, our correspondent, went to one of these hotels near Jerusalem and filed the following report.
At first glance, this scene looks like a happy occasion. But this is what Israeli hotels and volunteers across the country have been doing over the last 24 hours, opening their doors and their hearts to evacuees of Israel's Gaza envelope communities.
In the meantime, it's a chaos. A lot of people are still coming, and there is still no formal organization of this event, so it's still more spontaneous. I just reach out to kids or by the way, like old kids, even adults that are in trauma, and you just like, hey, what are you doing? Do you want to play? Do you want to talk? Do you want to hug?
An estimated 9,000 hotel rooms are currently reserved for these families. The Ariam Hotel alone is hosting 600 people.
We still feel safer here, but as you know, nobody's safe anywhere in this country. So it's all relative. We're happy to have a place to go. We appreciate having a place to go.
And indeed, heavy barrages of rockets reached over Jerusalem as well on Monday afternoon and early evening. But Monday's relative relief for these families comes after a weekend of horrors and an evacuation beyond worst nightmares.
It's not our first time being evacuated, but it's different from all the others we've experienced. In addition to the rockets flying at us, we understood that there were terrorists roaming the Moshav, just looking to murder people. I think at that moment the blood drained from my body. Just like that, we went in automatic, doing what needed to protect the house, the neighbors, the children, and my in-laws who live with us. The electricity went out 5 minutes after. For 12 hours we were in the bomb shelter in complete darkness with no air, with the sounds of shooting all around us. On occasion, messages made it through on our phones about people who said the terrorists were knocking on their doors, and then after, no more replies. Terrifying moments. I don't know where we can go from here. I just don't know where we go from here.
Trauma that is not easy to relive, but necessary to share.
We didn't know what was happening. We kept trying to find information and understand what was happening. We were told to stay inside the shelter and in any case not to go outside, but we were not told why. In the afternoon, I heard the neighbor's dog barking. I didn't understand why he was barking. There was no one outside. After a few minutes, I heard gunshots, and it Seemed to me because until now, it turned out that at this time they had murdered 3 people in a house less than 100 feet away from us.
Shielding their children from what nightmares they can, their biggest priority.
After 10 hours of being locked in a bomb shelter with our neighbors and everything, soldiers began to arrive. My husband and our neighbor called them from the window and asked them to get 2 jeeps ready. We would get cars ready to take the women and children from here. They would come later. The soldiers told us we have 10 minutes. We ran to dump whatever we could into a bag and left. The entire time I told the children to look at the phones and not to look around. Bodies were lying on the sides of the roads. I didn't know if they were terrorists or civilians or both. Burned cars.
Giving them safety that others were not lucky to afford. A miracle.
The emergency department came to escort us out, and I asked them, "What's going on?" They only said that a terrible disaster had happened. In the evening, in the dark, around about 9 or 10 o'clock, we were told that it was possible to evacuate the village in a convoy. We left because if you stay, you are like a duck in the range. Only later did we really understand what had happened. In our village, at least 18 people, including 1 child, were murdered. A rocket that was fired hit the house of 1 family and burned the house down, and they burned alive.
At one point, the residents took charge of the situation while waiting for the army. We had to try to get rid of the terrorists who came to us. Surrounding my house, there are 5 others, and just 3 or 4 of them families murdered. One of my neighbors noticed the terrorists were getting closer. He had an M16 and fired it into the air. By some miracle, it scared them away.
Monday, watching their children and neighbors smile, paint, and play with friends, not taken for granted. Residents close by doing what they can to help as brothers and sisters, hand in hand.
Just before continuing our conversation here in studio with Danny Ayalon, I'd like to update our viewers that the Israeli Health Ministry has put out a statement to say that 129 Israelis are still in severe condition from being wounded from the Hamas onslaught. Danny, there's just no words at this point to explain what is exactly happening in Israel. And my fear at the moment, as I'm sure is a fortune of other people, is why it took an event like Saturday to wake the world up. How many times have Israeli leaders, advocates, activists, and even international jury spoken up and said, never again, please don't let this happen to us again? How many times does it take for the message to get through? We now need to see these abhorrent videos on social media. And even so, those images are still not strong enough for certain people to not be praising the Palestinians and de facto Hamas.
Well, Bati, I'll tell you, the short answer is human nature. Human nature is, it's very convenient or maybe instinctively right to denial. When you see graphics, then it dawns on you. And I think this is what you're seeing now. Now, those who are still sympathizers with the Palestinians, I mean, they are the ones which are either total idiots or just mean. And, I wouldn't really take their approach to consideration at all. I mean, right now, they have thrown themselves out of, I would say, the borders of humanity, even the supporters, of Hamas. Now, I want to also refer to what you have just shown. The Israelis who have been evacuated from the border towns back, and this is to show that we are using the same yardstick with our population as we expect the population of Gaza to behave. Just as we took out the civil population from harm's way back, north into the heartland of the country, this is what should the Gazans do. Just clear the way from harm's way. We're doing it with our population. They should do it for themselves. I don't expect Hamas to do it, but this is where the Palestinian in Gaza should take matter into their own hands and just leave the area if they want to be out of harm's way. And as I mentioned, things can be arranged for them. There were millions of refugees in Europe just lately, you know, the Bosnian War and others. So this is not something which is unprecedented.
Danny Ayalon, I want to thank you very much for being in studio with me and for all these updates on what is still a very tragic event unfolding here in Israel. And for our viewers, just to wrap up, Israel is continuing its airstrikes in the Gaza Strip as Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warns that its response to Hamas's massacre on Saturday will reverberate with them for generations. Thousands of terror targets have been hit. Thousands of terrorists have also been eliminated. These strikes coming as Hamas continues to launch rockets on Israeli cities. The Israeli death toll has gone to over 900 people. More than 2,700 people have been wounded. The Israeli Health Ministry saying 129 of them in severe condition. More updates at the